Welcome back, family. Before the video starts, I just want to thank all my channel members for the support. Urgent warning for new infection spreading. I feel like every year there's just always like a new infection, like something's always going around. Let's see it.
Something incredibly contagious is spreading across 28 different states right now. And no, I am not talking about the flu. This is something new, and it's developing a tolerance towards medicine. So basically, this all stems from a fungus that was discovered almost 10 years ago, and it's referred to as Candida auris, now under close surveillance by the CDC for it being able to spread and resist medicine. Since the discovery, experts have mentioned that the number of cases has increased every single year, and it might continue to get worse. Make sure you grab a screenshot because these specific states are all the ones that are seeing new cases this year and haven't had this issue before. The CDC even considers the fungus now to be an urgent antimicrobial resistance threat because it has developed ways to be able to resist the medicine that's used to treat it. The fungus can easily spread with people with weakened immune systems. It can be transferred from one person who's infected to another just by simply touching a surface that can't be cleaned because it's resisting it, and it'll end up staying dormant for quite a while. Hospitals can only do so much to be able to prevent the spread of this fungus, especially when it's resisting anything that they can do to be able to stop it. I keep you guys updated about everything that happens in the news, especially when it's something this serious, so be sure to add me and come back tomorrow for another update just like this.
Well, he actually had a mispronunciation. It's not called Candida, it's called Candida, and it's actually a fungus. For those who don't know, it's like the yeast function for girls that get like yeast infections, and sometimes guys also get yeast infections. It comes from that specific fungus, and this is just a different variation of it, which is resistant to antifungal medicine, so that's why it's causing such this big outrage.
Did you guys hear Trump just announce that we have about 10 days to find out what's going to happen in Iran? And also, this is at the same time that a significant portion of the U.S. military is in the Strait of Hormuz, which is right next to Iran, doing an exercise. You know how usually there's an exercise and then the actual thing happens? So check out what he just said.
Qatar, countries, nobody could have signed. You would have had that threat. Nobody could have had, you couldn't have had peace in the Middle East. So now we may have to take it a step further, or we may not. Maybe we're going to make a deal. You're going to be finding out over the next probably 10 days.
Wow.
But this meeting today is proof with determined leadership, nothing is impossible.
I can't help but find it slightly ironic that he's standing in front of a billboard that says Board of Peace while he's talking about the potential of going to war with Iran. Now, to be clear, I'm not pro or anti-Trump. I think that is what is designed to polarize the nation and much of the world, in fact. I actually don't think any of our elected officials are really the ones behind big decisions being made. I know it's a crazy thought that there's a hidden hand behind this, but those are my thoughts. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below and follow for more.
Something terrifying happens to your body in the 5th dimensional world. And on the left, you see a 3D dimension, and on the right, you see a 50. Let's see.
When you enter a 5-dimensional world, something truly strange begins to happen. If you understand the 4th dimension properly, then the 5th dimension becomes a little easier to grasp, at least conceptually. In the 4-dimensional world, your entire life exists as one continuous structure stretched along the time axis. Now, to visualize the 5th dimension, you simply add one more axis to this space-time picture. This new axis does not represent another direction in space. Instead, it represents different possible histories of the same universe existing side by side. According to quantum mechanics, events do not always have a single definite outcome. A particle like a photon can exist in a superposition of many possible states until it is measured. Now apply this idea to your own life. At any given moment, you could make different choices. One version of you takes one path, another version takes a different path. In a 5-dimensional picture, all of these possible versions of your 4-dimensional life exist side by side along this new axis of possibilities. So if you imagine yourself as a 4-dimensional being stretched across time, then adding the 5th dimension means you are no longer just one space-time structure. You become a whole bundle of space-time structures. Many versions of your life existing in parallel. Even for a 4-dimensional being, this would be extremely difficult to visualize. A 5-dimensional being, however, would see all of these possible life paths as part of a single larger structure.
That always goes back to what I'm saying, where it's like us in the 3D is basically super hard, or like I would say borderline impossible to really imagine what it would be like to be in like a 4th or 5th dimensional world, if you know what I'm trying to say. Divers experience rare 7.2 magnitude underwater earthquake. To be honest, it's not as scary as I thought it was going to be. I don't know why I thought it was going to be like this big wave or like big, like, you know what I'm saying, emergence of water that just like for some reason just like encounter, like come up to them or something.
One of the most fascinating theories on the internet is the egg theory, which was created by Andy Weir, and it goes like this. When you die, you meet God, and God tells you something insane. He says that you are every person that has ever existed. Every cruel act you've done to yourself. Every kind act you've also done to yourself. You are both the victim and the abuser. When you die, you're reincarnated as another person, so you experience every human life. You essentially are the universe.
Yeah, I've actually heard about that. That's not more of the egg theory. That's more of the one theory where it's like you are everybody. Basically, I am you and you are me, just in a different life. Like, you know what I'm saying? So when you die, you could potentially be reborn or reincarnate into me, and when I die, I could potentially reincarnate into you. You know what I'm trying to say?
I thought we were over the whole demonic concert phase, but Lady Gaga, she just doesn't stop. What is this? This is trending all over X right now.
That's ridiculous.
Just look at her hands. I mean, if we're paying for these concerts, yikes.
Breaking right now, the Pentagon is prepping potentially weeks-long sustained strikes on Iran if President Trump pulls the trigger. We're talking not just nuclear sites anymore. Full state infrastructure, security forces, command centers, and Trump just said that regime change would be the best thing that could happen. Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi straight up begged Trump in Munich, saying, help them. The Iranian people have faith in you. With 2 carriers going to be in the Persian Gulf very soon, things could get hot at any second. And of course, Iran is warning. They're saying if you hit the regime, then every U.S. base in the region gets lit up. Of course, they're going to say that.
Yeah, Chad, I've been saying this for a while now. Something big is coming, man. We might have World War III or like an alien invasion or something. Like, I don't know what it is, but hopefully if the US does end up bombing Iran, we don't bomb the civilians, because what does the civilians really got to do with this? Hopefully it's more like military base ordinated and not like civilian targets, because that's when America will be kind of looked at as like an evil country compared to like the police, I guess you could say.
Holy hell, guys, we have just got the first images of not Prince Andrew after he was released from police custody, being questioned for about 12 hours straight. And what the hell did they tell him in there? Because brother looks shook to his core. I genuinely thought that this was AI when I first saw this image, but no, it is completely real. And to make matters even crazier, they arrested him on his 66th birthday, and he has now become the first British royal to be arrested by police in nearly 400 years. We are living through history every day this year. Now, he remains under investigation for his ties with Jeffrey Epstein, so when we have an update on what happens to him next, I'll let you guys know.
You believe the Antichrist is going to be AI generated?
Yes, it is AI. It's literally AI. That's what the Orthodox tradition teaches, right? The Russians believe this, where it is actually Western civilization that's the Antichrist. And what's the endpoint of Western civilization? The AI surveillance state.
Yeah, man, honestly, I could get down with that. I could truly believe that AI could be the Antichrist. AI could be the thing that puts humanity on its knees, if you know what I'm trying to say. AI could be the thing that takes over and leaves all of us in the dust, because at the end of the day, you got to remember, us as humans, we aren't the strongest, we aren't the fastest, we aren't the tallest, we aren't the most capable, I guess you could say. What separates us is that we're just the smartest, you know what I'm saying? So if we have something smarter than us, what does that have to say about us in the upcoming future? For all we know, just like how humans took over the planet and we eat animals at such a high rate, AI could potentially do the same thing to us, but in a different way, like maybe harvest our energy like we've seen in movies and stuff like that, if you know what I'm trying to say.
3 things are changing your body right now and you have no idea. First, your roommate's bacteria are shaping your gut bacteria. A 2025 study on rats let us know that the bacteria of the people around you, the people you share space with, affect your microbiome as much as your own DNA. So you're not just sharing a lease, you are absorbing them on a bacterial level. 3, your phone is making your brain shrink. Literally, your phone addiction is actually shrinking the amount of gray matter in your brain. Yeah, brain scans of people who are addicted to their phones show the same amount of deterioration as like somebody addicted to drugs. It's not that you're just distracted or that you have a short attention span. Your brain tissue that's responsible for decision making, impulse control, emotional regulation, yeah, that's just disappearing. And the average person scrolls for 4 to 6 hours every single day. 3, your chronic loneliness is making your body inflamed. Your immune system treats chronic loneliness like an actual physical wound. So when you're lonely for long periods of time, your body goes into threat mode. It thinks it's being attacked. It ramps up inflammation to prepare for a potential attack because historically, when you were alone, like in the wild, it meant, yeah, you were probably going to get attacked. So your loneliness is killing you. I love my precious.
They were sucked out of the plane. Oh no.
The odds of this happening again, astronomically low. I probably have better odds of winning the lottery, but it still makes me not want to fly. This slideshow has 3 images. The first image shows a United Airlines flight. Plane looks normal. Second image, we then can see a giant gaping hole in the side of the plane. And the third image shows a row of seats that have been torn out from that hole. What this slideshow is referencing is an incident that took place on United Airlines Flight 811 back in 1989. 17 minutes into this flight after departing from Honolulu, there was an explosive decompression that took place at a height of around 20,000 feet. A mechanical malfunction caused one of the doors to rip off. This then resulted in rows of seats being pulled out. 9 people were lost in total. No remains were found after the incident, except for some human remains found in the jet engine, so presumably somebody was ingested by the jet engine after being sucked out of the plane. The pilot did lower to an appropriate altitude so people could breathe, and this is how people reacted after touching back down, having survived the ordeal. Terrifying story. I'm sorry if I made your fear of flying worse. Just again, keep in mind this happened decades ago and this is extremely unlikely to happen.
Yeah, anyone that flies, there's obviously a risk every time you fly, you know what I'm saying? But they do say that flying is a lot safer than driving. So at least that statistic will make you be a little bit more make you a little less stressful on flights. But yeah, that's crazy. I never knew that they found human remains in the jet engine though. That's really scary.
Answer the question. Okay. Answer the question. Okay.
So Les Wexner is testifying before the House Committee. He's the co-founder of Bath & Body Works. He is the CEO of Victoria's Secret. And his attorney literally threatens him to not say more than 5 words on camera while he was testifying. And they were saying a lot of interesting things, talking about the Rothschilds and stuff like that. Take a look at this.
At an industrial level, like working for a big company like Bear Stearns, and then he had done personal work for the Rothschild family in France.
Personal wealth management, essentially?
I don't know.
Okay. We've seen some reports that he would present himself as a bounty hunter, that he would find people's missing money. Do you recall him saying anything like that?
No. Well, specifically, I talked to Ellie de Rothschild, and so I mentioned that earlier. So he represented their whole family, so there had been a whole bunch of people. Most of them I never would have met, but I knew Ellie.
An Air India pilot was removed from the cockpit and arrested shortly before takeoff for failing alcohol tests. Wow. The incident occurred on December 23rd at Vancouver International Airport. Shortly before departure, airport personnel raised a concern about the captain's condition. Canadian authorities were called and the pilot was given a breathalyzer test twice. Both tests indicated alcohol in his system, and under Canadian aviation rules, a pilot may not fly within 12 hours of drinking or while impaired. As a result, the pilot was removed from duty on the spot and taken off of the aircraft by Royal Canadian Police. It's important to note that false positives do occur with these tests sometimes, so it could have been that too.
People talk about the dangers of drinking and driving. Imagine drinking and flying. I wonder what's the dangers in that. Michael Jackson's last footage, he passed away the next day. R.I.P. Michael, man. The king of pop himself.
Right here. Okay, no second verse. Sorry. That was a mistake. There is no second verse. Sorry about that, you guys. First verse, ooh, then right to the bridge. Okay. Let's do it one more time.
Sure. Want to go down and come back up?
Yeah. That's why we have rehearsal.
There you go. Random.
This is the true story of the Skinwalkers. Skinwalkers are warlocks with the ability to shapeshift and become animals or people. They can not only take your appearance but also clone your voice perfectly. The biggest Skinwalker sightings have been in Ohio and Arizona, but they are found all over the world. The preferred form of Skinwalkers is that of your pet. They take the form of your pet and enter your home and try to act like your pet to gain your trust, and then they can take your life. Watch how in this video the boy realizes that his dog is a Skinwalker.
Let me see. I'll know if she's my dog. Merlin, sit. Turn around. Turn around. Lay down. You're not my dog. My dog don't know how to do no fucking trick.
Wow.
The fuck? Call 911. Hey! Somebody!
Hey, that's honestly a good test to see if your dog is a Skinwalker. I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of funny.
People say that when you sleep at night, you should never let the toes of your shoes point directly toward the bed. It's said that certain wandering spirits can find your bed based on the direction your shoes are facing. So if you turn your shoes around, those spirits might get confused and won't know where the bed is. One day, a woman happened to read this story. That night, when her husband went to the bathroom, she purposely messed up the shoes on the floor. After a while, her husband returned to the room. Strangely, he kept walking around in circles and never laid down on the bed. The woman glanced at the shoes on the floor. They were exactly like the story described. Just when she was about to quietly slip out of the room, her husband suddenly returned to normal. She let out a sigh of relief. But when she looked down, she froze instantly. Do you know why?
I have no idea why, but I'm guessing like the shoes weren't there. If y'all think you guys know, let me know in the comments, because this is kind of like a riddle. How do you explain this? Is that a cut tree in the middle of the ocean? What is going on?
Giants, or more specifically the remaining tree stump of a gargantuan tree that was chopped down by giants and has since become petrified over a long period of time, which essentially turns it into a rock. Part of the larger ancient giant trees theory, where it's said that trees up to 50 miles high covered the earth and were harvested by the giants told by every ancient culture's folklore, like Devil's Tower in Wyoming, Giant's Causeway in Ireland, Cerro in Venezuela, and Jugurtha Tableland in Tunisia, among many, many others. The nearby island country of Malta is also home to its own ancient megalithic temples like Hagar Kim, built with stones of such immense size that it's deemed impossible for regular humans to move and lift. Or Gigantia, which literally translates to place of giants on Malta's island of Gozo, where local legend says this temple was built by a giantess named Sansuna, whose largest stone weighs 50 tons, equivalent to about 35 cars stacked on top of each other. Estimated to have been built around 3600 BC, a whole 1,000 years before the first pyramids in Egypt were built, suggesting that a race of giants lived in Malta before a global cataclysm wiped them out. And in fact, the Hypogeum of Halsaflieni, an underground necropolis on Malta dating back to about 4000 BC that was discovered by accident in 1902, contained over 7,000 skeletons of presumed giant bones, along with mysterious elongated skulls that were found by archaeologist Sir Temi Zamit, and were on public display in the Valletta Museum of Archaeology until 1985, when they were mysteriously removed without explanation. And yeah, Filfla Island was a tree these giants chopped down or something. Today, no one is allowed on it as it's a protected nature reserve and may also have some unexploded bombs laying around.
Have you seen the shocking footage of humans from the 1940s that is making everyone question our entire history? A series of insane clips from old 1940s film videos has recently surfaced, and they are sending a chill down everyone's spine. At first glance, it looks like a normal gathering of people from the mid-century. But as the footage continues, the atmosphere turns heavy. Look closer at their eyes. Because the way these people move is impossible to describe. It's jagged, unnatural, and completely out of sync with our reality. When they turn to stare directly into the camera, it doesn't feel like they are looking at a lens. It feels like they are looking through time, straight at you. But here's the part that is sending shockwaves through the internet. Some believe these recordings capture real paranormal entities that lived among us in the 1940s before they were forced into hiding. They say this footage was highly classified for over 80 years, and it has only appeared now because of a glitch in the digital archive. But what do you think is really captured on these old videos? Write me your opinion in the comments.
Me personally, I think it's just CGI. I just think it's just like, just for show. I don't really think they really look like that.
In 1979, a teenage girl accepts a babysitting job at an isolated home in the Minnesota woods. After putting the children to bed, she settles on the couch to watch TV, only to be startled by a phone call. She picks it up and hears heavy breathing, when suddenly a man's unsettling voice asks, "Have you checked on the children?" Nervous, she dismisses it as a prank and hangs up. 15 minutes later, the phone rings again. This time the voice asks, "Why haven't you checked on the children?" Panic sets in and she calls 911. The operator advises her to keep the caller on the line if they call back, allowing the call to be traced. Moments later, the phone rings again, and the voice snarls, "Check on the children now." Trembling, she keeps the call connected as instructed. Once more the phone rings. The operator's voice crackles through, urgent and frantic. "Get out of the house. The calls are coming from upstairs." Terrified but worried about the children, she hesitates before fleeing outside. She bolted out of the house, her heart pounding in her chest. There, a tall man stepped out of the shadows, his presence looming as he stared her down with a chilling intensity, and he asked in a cold, menacing voice, "Why didn't you check on the children?"
Let me show you a very creepy video. This is why you don't play around with dark magic. Let's talk about the origin of this video, and it was around before AI saw it, but I will agree that his face is definitely edited. It's not uncommon for cultures to keep bodies around after they have been deceased. Like in Indonesia, every year they'll dig up the dead and bring their bodies around town in like a celebration of life. There's a whole festival where they just dig up, and they're dragging around the bodies. If this video is real, minus the edited face, it's kind of creepy that she was trying to bring him back to life and his body is just there in the room. Plus, do you remember that woman that got possessed and crawled out of her grave, but it was not her? If you want a story time on that, let me know. But yeah, she crawled out of her grave and it was definitely not her.
People think basements are dangerous because they're dark. That's a mistake. They're dangerous because they're forgotten. Here's a warning people ignore. If you're home alone and you hear a washer stop early, don't go downstairs right away. Most people do. Wet clothes feel urgent. People who waited noticed the same thing. The house didn't respond anymore. No floor creaks, no pipes adjusting, just silence sitting on top of the noise below. If you take one step into the basement stairs and the air feels warmer instead of colder, don't keep going. That means someone else has been down there long enough to change it. Here's the part that matters. If your basement light is already on and you know who turned it off, don't turn it back off. Light left on isn't a mistake. It's a signal. Rule 1, if you hear movement near the bottom of the stairs, but you can't tell which direction it came from, don't call out. Calling tells them you're still at the top. Rule 2, if the washer lid is open when it should be closed, don't touch it. Open machines are about distraction, not laundry. People who panic say the same thing later. The sound stopped the moment they moved, not faded, stopped. Here's what survivors agree on. If you smell clean clothes before the cycle ends, that means someone finished waiting. Rule 3, if you're still upstairs, stay there. Basements are designed to trap sound. People who went down there never heard a struggle, never heard running, just the stairs creaking behind them, one step at a time after they stopped moving. And if you listen to this and your washer just clicked off, don't assume it's done. The most patient intruders don't rush. They wait in the part of the house you visit without thinking.
100% true horror story.
This is a 100% true story that happened to a woman in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, there was this woman named Sherry who moved into this house with her 2 children in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, she said, at the time, she didn't believe in anything supernatural. She really thought that was a bunch of nonsense. But she said, right away when they moved in, she would notice, out of the corner of her eye, sometimes shadows moving across the walls. She would hear strange noises that she couldn't explain. But she said for the most part, it was just a normal house. One night, she's upstairs in her bedroom and she's folding laundry. She hears talking coming from her son's room. So she makes her way over to his room. The door's closed and she hears her son having a full-on conversation with someone. And she's like, who is he talking to, at 12:30 at night? So she opens the door And when she looks in his room, he is not in his bed. So she starts yelling for him. She looks down and sees him next to the side of his bed, on his knees, crouched down with his head under the bed, talking to someone. And she's like, hey, who are you talking to? Like, who's under there? And her son's like, I can't tell you. And she said, what do you mean you can't tell me? Like, who's under the bed? And he's like, I can't say. He'll get mad. And she's like, what? Who's under there? So she runs over to the bed and she looks underneath there. It's empty. There's nothing under there. So she's like, you know what? Just get back in bed. Like, just stop, doing whatever you're doing. Several weeks pass, and like on a regular basis, she keeps finding her son talking to someone under the bed, except there's no one there. So after a few weeks of this happening, she thinks maybe something is wrong with her son. So she takes him to this child therapist. The therapist assesses him and says, he seems completely fine. It's probably just his imagination. So several months pass and he keeps on doing this. Well, one day she's sitting down in the living room with him and they're talking when she notices he has some scratches and bruises all over his body. And she's like, where did you get those scratches and bruises from? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I can't say, I can't tell you. And she's like, yes, you have to tell me, what is going on with you? And finally he breaks down and he starts crying and stuff. And he just starts freaking out. And then he runs up to his room. So the mom, at this time is like, I don't know what to do. What is going on with my son? She's just panicking. Later that night, she's awoken to her son screaming in his bedroom. She runs as fast as she can. She goes in his room. She finds him halfway underneath the bed. He's grabbing onto the bed frame, and it looks like something is pulling him under the bed. So she immediately grabs him, pulls him out from under the bed. She looks under there. There's no one there. So she's like, you know what, this is weird. You're sleeping with me tonight. You're going to be in bed with me tonight. So they go back to her bedroom. He lays down. He falls asleep. She's sitting in bed. She can't sleep. She's freaked out about this whole situation. When all of a sudden she hears, shh, hey, come under the bed. And she's like, what? She looks over. Her son is sleeping. But then once again she hears, hey, come here under the bed. I need to talk to you. And it's like a man's voice. And she's like, no, who are you? Go away. And the man's like, come on, get under the bed. I need to tell you something. And she's like, no, I'm not going under the bed. And she said this man, whoever he was, just started yelling obscenities and getting really angry. So she grabs her son. They get out of the house. And she said she left that night and never went back. And still to this day, that house sits there. And she said she's talked to the neighbors. And they said since she's moved, several families have lived there and they move out immediately.
This woman picked up a cat from the streets, but at night she captured this strange video of the animal. Do you think this is normal behavior for a cat or something she should be concerned about?
Definitely not normal behaviors for a cat, and I would 100% be concerned. This girl got saved by clown pranksters.
This clown set out to film what was supposed to be just harmless prank, but things went way too far. What started as ordinary content suddenly turned into something far more serious, when in a split second, a prankster became an unexpected hero. They were filming at a nearly empty subway station. A young woman stood alone on the platform when 3 men began drifting closer to her. At first, it might have seemed innocent, just strangers waiting for the train. Originally, the clown had planned to prank the girl, but something felt off when the men rose from their seats and moved towards her. And that's when the clown stepped into the shot. With 2 baseball bats in hand, he stood directly in the man's path. He didn't speak, he didn't joke, he just stared. And suddenly, it didn't feel like a prank anymore. The tension was undeniable. The men paused, exchanged looks, then backed away. Seconds later, they took off running. Just like that, a silly stunt turned into a real rescue. Not because it was planned, but because someone paid attention when others might have looked away. But what do you think? Was it coincidence, or did he sense the danger just in time?
TikTok couple is in big trouble. So the guy in this couple, his name's Chris. And Chris, he's about 30 when this story starts, and he's living in Texas. Now, Chris really wants to be a home improvement influencer with his wife, this woman, Raquel.
Yeah.
And so they want to be home improvement influencers, which basically means that they're trying to be TikTokers who focus on home renovations and interior design, stuff like that. So one day in 2020, Chris and Raquel decide to start their own home renovation and construction company. They're basically gonna remodel people's homes for them. And in order to market their new company, they start putting themselves on social media.
Hey guys, I'm Chris.
And I'm Raquel. We're with the Judge DFW Real Estate Group.
Now during this time, Chris, he's working as a real estate agent. Plus, he knows a bit about construction. But that's not exactly what he tells people. He actually lies to people and tells them that he's a licensed architect. In fact, he alludes to it right in his social media bio. Now, eventually, people start to reach out. I assume because they're seeing their videos and advertisements online. And these people, they're wanting things like new kitchen floors for their house or whatever. Once a potential customer shows interest, Chris and Raquel will offer them a low bid compared to their competitors. And Chris will promise to complete all the work in 4 to 6 months.
And you get to move in knowing that you don't have to make any repairs.
And people hear this deal and they're like, sounds good. Once they get into the contract and paperwork of it all, Raquel will let them know that they need a $10,000 deposit to get everything started. Then, of course, the client pays the money and boom, the work officially starts. Now, so far, everything is going well, and Chris and Raquel start attracting more and more clients. But then, they start running into some problems. The main issue is that Chris, he really doesn't seem to have a good idea of what he's doing. After a homeowner hires his company to do a job, he'll then turn around and hire cheap subcontractors to actually do the work. And a lot of times, those subcontractors will do a terrible job. And on top of that, sometimes Chris just won't even pay the subcontractors. And because the subcontractors aren't getting paid, they'll just stop showing up. So homeowners will be paying all this money for things like new windows or new doors or whatever, and those new windows or doors will just never get installed because the workers never showed up. And of course, at some point, the clients start to realize, hey, all this stuff I'm paying for, it isn't getting done. What's the deal? And Chris and Raquel will then come up with excuses like that this is a totally normal delay in construction and this happens all the time with home remodeling. And the homeowners don't want the work to completely stop, so they'll continue making the payments. And of course, these payments are going right into Chris and Raquel's pocket. Now, at some point, some of these homeowners will get mad, inevitably. Once this happens, once a client starts getting frustrated, they try to hit up Chris and complain, and Chris, he'll just, ghost them. He just won't pick up their calls. So now, a lot of these poor homeowners are stuck with a half-finished house and a contractor who's no longer answering his phone. What a nightmare. And if you think it can't get worse than that, it actually does. So the homeowners remodeling projects that were abandoned by Chris and Raquel, these people are now having to pay new contractors to come in and fix the mess. And these aren't small projects either. Some homeowners paid Chris and Raquel hundreds of thousands of dollars to get work done. In fact, one homeowner gets screwed over by this so bad, this guy has to file for bankruptcy.
Wow.
Not only that, but a lot of these people move out of their house completely while the work is being done, and Chris flakes out and he stops showing up or whatever, and so now these people are without a place to live. So anyway, Chris and Raquel, they keep this scheme going. They're out there abandoning project after project after project while still keeping these people's money. And they don't do this just like 1 or 2 times. They scam over 40 different people out of, are you ready for this? $5 million total. And of course, inevitably, like every scammer we talk about, Chris and Raquel, they're taking all this money they got and they are spending it on themselves. They spend $82,000 buying shit on Amazon. They spend $27,000 of it on their own mortgage payments. They spend $10,000 of it on plastic surgery. And all these shenanigans go on for a few years. And the really bad thing is that when homeowners report them to the police are basically like, oh, a contractor didn't show up for work? Sounds like a civil matter. because, contractors are notorious for not showing up. Plus, police just don't yet realize the severity of this fraud, because they don't realize that over 40 families have been scammed. So it looks like nothing is ever going to be done about this, and that Chris and Raquel can just keep taking homeowners' money and abandoning their projects.
Nope.
Until 2022. 2022 is when Chris and Raquel's little scheme finally starts to catch up with them. Because it's around this time that the Texas Board of Architecture discovers that Chris is falsely claiming that he's an architect, including in his social media bio. And so the board issues him a formal warning. Like, bro, you're not a licensed architect, stop telling people you are. Now, you would think that this formal warning would get Chris and Raquel to pump the brakes a little, maybe slow down a bit on this whole scheme. But they don't. They keep taking on new clients, and they keep taking their current clients' money while leaving old abandoned projects behind. Now, eventually, someone that they screwed over decides to take action and connect with other people that they screwed over. And this person starts a Facebook group. And quite a few former clients of Chris and Raquel's join this group, and they all start sharing stories. And some of them get so fed up that at some point they decide to file lawsuits against Chris and Raquel. Because a lot of these people lost a lot of money. Yeah. Not to mention that the work Chris and Raquel oversaw was so cheaply done that a ton of it isn't even up to code. Like, they built a 2-car garage with no rafters. In one house, they put in floors that were uneven. And there are door openings in the same house that were all different sizes. They put in a lot of bad wiring and stuff. In one place, they installed windows that weren't even rectangle. How do you even do that? And so anyway, because a lot of their work isn't up to code, Chris and Raquel's company ends up getting 424 citations for code enforcement violations. 424. Wow, so anyway, eventually, so many people have been scammed by them that the local police and the FBI have to get involved. And they all start investigating together, and they see that Chris isn't an architect at all, and then they find all these projects that weren't completed and how they're using the money they were paid for personal things. And so, bam, Chris gets arrested. Also, bam, Raquel gets arrested. And I couldn't find a mugshot, but here's what they look like in real life. And so ultimately, they both take a plea deal, and they actually haven't been sentenced yet, but Raquel is facing up to 5 years in prison, while Chris is facing up to 20 years in prison.
Yeah, man, it looked like one of those things where people just wanted the money of something that they just didn't have the skill for. Like, for example, they probably didn't really know how to do any of that architecture stuff, but the money, they know the payout for it is good. And they had, like, I'm saying, proper way to get out there because of TikTok. Because if y'all don't know, TikTok's algorithm is like this. Like, if you make good content and that could capture people's attention for like more than 10 seconds, you know what I'm saying? You can get a lot of views pretty quickly on TikTok. Like, you can make an account today and be famous tomorrow. That's just how the TikTok algorithm works. So they probably had some, like, you know what I'm saying, some traction, and then people were like, let's try these people out, and they got scammed. So, you know what I'm saying, sometimes when it comes to like these influencers, like, yes, some people do have good businesses on TikTok, but you got to also watch out because not all of them are actually skilled enough to follow through with what they're advertising on TikTok.
Thank you all for watching this here video. Please like and subscribe.